This story horrifies me, for very personal reasons, and here's why this is. Like, I'm hoping that I can even get through this story because I am so furious and emotional about it. Yeah, a lot of times journalists don't get emotional, or people think that journalists or reporters aren't supposed to be emotionally invested in their stories. You know, you see on CNN, for the most part, they just deliver things with a straight face, or whatever. They really only break that when they're yelling about Trump or something. So, but I'm going to be real with you. That's how we are here at Status Coup. We are real about what's going on in our lives, our situations. So in this case, where this 13-year-old autistic child, with Asperger's, was shot by police, I have a 13-year-old boy with Asperger's. When I read the story, I teared up, because a lot of people are really uneducated or undereducated about autism in general. And then when you come to something like Asperger's, which presents as a high functioning autism in most cases, they even got rid of the term Asperger's a few years ago. I still prefer to use the term Asperger's for my child, because it really is, it's a different situation. It's a spectrum. It's a spectrum of autism. And so kids with Asperger's, adults with Asperger's, they're typically pretty high functioning, but there are struggles. So I just say all that to set up this piece, and to give, it's none of it's easy. So let me dive in here. So the story's out of The Guardian. Police shoot 13-year-old boy with autism several times after mother calls for help. Lyndon Cameron was recovering in Utah hospital after suffering injuries to his shoulder, ankles, his intestines, and his bladder. Ugh. A 13-year-old boy with autism was shot several times by police officers who responded to his home in Salt Lake City after his mother called for help. So I actually want to stop right there. I'm not trying to judge any other mother. It is really, really difficult. You never know what to do in situations that are heightened or that are scary. I again, I'm not trying to judge, but why in God's name did this mother call the police on her 13-year-old son with Asperger's? What are the police going to do? The police don't have magical powers. They're not going to be able... People with Asperger's, people with autism, they can often reach a state, a point of no return, where they are in a true meltdown mode, where no amount of reasoning, no amount of bribing, no amount of aggression or yelling, it's not going to pull them out of the state that they're in. It's just not. You need someone who is trained in de-escalating someone with autism, someone with Asperger's. There are ways to do it. Things like even something as simple as a weighted blanket, leaving the person in a safe room, not locking them in or anything, but leaving them in a space room to kind of come down, giving them something distracting. If there's going to be a big transition, tell them way ahead of time and use strategies to prepare for that transition. Don't just, spring it on them. So I'm not trying to judge, but I kind of am, because why in God's name did she call the police on her son? I can't fathom. I wouldn't. Lyndon Cameron was recovering in a Utah hospital, his mother said, after suffering injuries to his shoulder, both ankles, his intestines, and his bladder. Golda Barton told KUTV she called 911 to request a crisis intervention team because her son, who has Asperger's syndrome, was having an episode caused by bad separation anxiety as his mother went to work for the first time in more than a year. His mother went to work for the first time in a year. So you have this child with Asperger's who has difficulty with transitions and change to start with. But then you have what seems to be his main caretaker leaving and going to work. This is major. It's hard enough to be 13 years old. Being a teenager is really tough. I don't know if you guys can remember back to when you were 13 in middle school or junior high or whatever you had in your area. It's a real hellscape. When you add Asperger's on top of that, those confusing hormonal changes are incredibly compounded by the fact that you already have difficulty with transitions and changes. And you're uncertain about your body, you're uncertain about friends. It's a real uncertain time. So she knew that he was having high separation anxiety, so she decided to call the police. I said, he's unarmed, he doesn't have anything, he just gets mad and he starts yelling and screaming, she said. He's a kid, he's trying to get attention, he doesn't know how to regulate. And that's a key term that parents with Asperger, or parents with kids with Asperger's or autism know to use, a lot, because it's something that comes up. There's a dysregulation that becomes difficult to escape from. So she's saying he's having difficulty regulating. That is something he can't control. He's not just trying to get attention. He's not just trying to be bad or disobedient. He just literally is not regulated. His senses are all off. His brain is in a fog. It's something that neurotypical people, including myself, truly cannot understand. So she does detail, she said he's unarmed. It seems she did try to explain the situation to police. And a lot of people associate police with a helping force. So while I don't understand this mother's actions, looking at it from the lens of many people do see the police as a helping sort of like first call. Which is really unfortunate, especially because stuff like this can happen. She added, they're supposed to come out and be able to de-escalate a situation using the most minimal force possible. Instead, she said, 2 officers went through the front door of the home and in less than 5 minutes were yelling, "Get down on the ground," before firing several shots. They went through the front door of the home, and within 5 minutes, they were firing several shots. The police are not the people to call in every situation, and this is a very clear example of why. The police escalate situations. They don't de-escalate situations. This is why part of why people are calling to defund the police. They are calling for someone trained with Asperger's or autism to be called into the home instead. They're calling for funds to go to something like that. If something like that existed, instead of funding police like crazy and militarizing the police and fostering this vibe of we're just going to shoot everything, we're just going to be violent and crazy all the time because we can get away with it, we're police. So instead of funding that insanity, fund things that can help. Fund people who are trained in mental health, because as we talked about, the black man who was murdered in Rochester, that was a mental health issue. And in this case, someone who was trained in de-escalation and coping techniques for children or people with Asperger's or autism. No one would have gotten shot, that's for sure. He's a small child, she said. Why didn't you just tackle him? He's a baby. He has mental issues. Which I also take an issue with calling it mental issues. I don't think that's the right framing. So in a briefing on Sunday, Sergeant Keith Horrocks of Salt Lake City Police told reporters officers were responding to reports a juvenile was having a mental episode and thought Cameron had made threats to some folks with a weapon. Police confirmed they did not find a weapon at the scene. So because you misheard, you thought someone said that there were threats with a weapon, you just start shooting? No. People get things wrong in a scene. You know, you don't know what's happening. If you did not see a weapon, why, even if you did see a weapon, why are you just immediately starting to shoot? It doesn't make any sense. It's not human. In a statement to the Salt Lake Tribune, Mayor Aaron Meadenhall vowed the investigation would be quick. No matter the circumstances, what happened on Friday night is a tragedy, and I expect this investigation to be handled swiftly and transparently for the sake of everyone involved. So then the article goes on to talk about the recent calls for Black Lives Matter, for defunding the police, the numerous Black people who've been murdered at the hands of police. This mother of this autistic child, you know, this Aspergerian child, has launched a fundraiser to cover her son's medical bills. Side note, we need Medicare for all in this country. She described Cameron as a typical young boy who loves video games, four-wheeling, and longboarding. She also demanded answers about why her son was not subdued. Why didn't they tase him? Why didn't they shoot him with a rubber bullet? You are big police officers and massive amounts of resources. Come on, give me a break. Like, also, why does this mother want her son with Asperger's who is dysregulated to be tased or taken down with a rubber bullet? I hope this child gets the help that he needs. I hope that the people in his life educate themselves, and I hope that this, if anything good can come out of this story, that it helps to further the calls for defunding the police and getting community help, community resources, giving community resources money, and not always having the police as the first line of defense for every single thing.
Hope you enjoyed that last video. Hop on over to statuscoup.com where you can sign up for our email list and become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Membership is how we grow. That's statuscoup.com/join. And remember, join our email list so we can grow the revolution with you.